Well, howdy. Welcome back to yet another episode of Schlockaholics. I am joined, of course, by my two loyal co-hosts. We got Septum Sin of Septum Sin of the World, or Versus the World. He is of the world, though, too. How's it going, buddy? It looks like you're enjoying a tasty beverage over there, too. What you working on?
Vanilla Coke.
Not bad. I went to a little... Ooh, that's nice. I went festive with it this week, on account of this is kind of our Halloween celebration and the subject matter of tonight's films. Got that Voodoo Ranger Atomic Pumpkin. It's like a habanero pumpkin ale. And I like it. It's pretty good. Cody, how you doing? He's here with us as well.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Not too bad. And we're about to be a lot better because we do have a special guest lined up for you guys tonight. To take part in our discussion of our second ever double feature on the channel. And that's for Death of Lantern 1 and 2 from Warlock Home Video and one Chris Seaver. He's going to be joining us here shortly, but we're going to run through those first impressions real quick. I think me and Cody kind of had a bit of a head start on this compared to you, Brandon. So we're going to go ahead and let you jump in there and give your first impression first. How'd you find these? Do you enjoy them?
You. That's how I found them originally. But I admit my exposure had been very limited to Seaver stuff because I watched Filthy McNasty because it had a relation to X Strike Studios with River City Rumble. I think it is a Rampage. I can't remember which one. One's the game, one's the movie. And I remember watching it with Jake. And then Jake saying, I'm never watching a film by this person again. But then, of course, you had gotten into him. So I said, okay. So I ordered a whole bunch of stuff off of him. And you sent me a whole bunch of stuff off of him. And so now I have a very large Seaver collection, which I have not been able to get too many of them. So I was very glad to finally have the excuse to dive into one of the many. It's really sad when your pile is like, well, probably close to 1,000 long now. So yeah, it's
right.
So I'm glad that I was able to sift these out and watch them finally.
That's what we got a good excuse to get to the dumber selections in our backlog with this show, and today is no exception. So these were your second and third Seaver films then after Filthy McNasty.
Yeah, and I don't remember a lot of Filthy McNasty, but it does have a lot of vibe that reminds me of some of the X-Strike stuff like P-Rappa's Raptastic Adventure and maybe a little bit of that River City Rampage. Kind of reminds me of those in the DNA. So I'm sure that there's been some back and forth between everybody in these types of films, but definitely has that vibe, especially when I was watching the behind the scenes. So they're enjoyable.
Right on. We'll definitely have to work on Jake. I think that there's a lot more Seaver flicks that he could see that he would actually enjoy. Filthy McNasty, he was pushing some limits with those movies, especially the first couple. So he was intentionally trying to be pretty foul. I don't know that Chris himself is like super hyped on those movies these days. I love them, but doesn't take much for me to tap into my crude juvenile side when it comes to some of this stuff. Death of Lantern, though, is a different animal, I think, compared to those. And I would think Cody would agree. What was your first impression when you saw these, man?
Yeah, like Brandon, except just a lot further back. I think I watched Filthy McNasty when it was a bonus movie for, was it Dead and Rotting, I think? It was like a bonus.
I don't think it's on Dead and Rotting. I think it's on, it might be on there, actually. I think you're right.
But it was a bonus feature on either a Tempe or a Full Moon movie, and I watched it back when I worked at Hastings and liked it, and then kind of just never thought any more about it. And then I don't know where this went in my buying of Seaver stuff, but I've definitely seen more since then. And I enjoyed both of these. I like the shot on video 80s style of it. I like that you got your wisecracking killer that was just, I don't want to go too much further into it because I know we're going to get there, but I really enjoyed both of them. They're good fun movies. I mean, it was very easy to knock out both of these in a short amount of time.
Oh yeah, I think they're only both like 35 minutes or something. It's deceiving when you like hit the display thing on your Blu-ray player because it says like an hour and 28 minutes, but some of that's the tacked on, behind the scenes stuff at the end.
Right.
See, I was late to the game with Seaver. I definitely knew about Chris Seaver's movies by title alone, because I'm not the type of dude to, totally put a title like, Terror at Blood Fart Lake out of my memory. I heard the title and I was like, wow, that's something I should probably look into one day, but then just kind of forgot about it. And then I found Chris like right as the pandemic kicked off. Actually, a little bit beforehand, I think like mid to late 2019, I found his channel. It crept from the 80s because I was big into full moon, as a lot of people know. And I was looking around. I think I just typed in full moon documentary, and it was him and Bobby Heckman in a video talking about their favorite full moon movies. Chris is how I found out about Dr. Alien, for example, from that video. So, I got into his channel from there. I was watching it for several months, and he had mentioned in a couple of videos that he made movies, but then I think he specifically mentioned one of the titles that I recognized. I was like, oh shit, this is the guy that made those, and then it turned out he did Blood Fart Lake and everything. So I started getting his movies. The first one that I saw was The Weirdsies, because it was free on YouTube at the time. And he'd also mentioned how it was like kind of his favorite movie that they'd done. So I went and I checked it out because it was going to be leaving YouTube soon or whatever, because Tempe was putting out that Blu-ray. And then it came about that there was that whole box set. So Filthy McNasty was probably one of the first ones I saw. I just watched them in order. So I think I watched Mulva first, maybe, and then Filthy McNasty. But Death of Lantern I got to at some point last year when I got it off of Chris as part of, his bundles that he does every so often. And absolutely fucking loved them, man. The first one hits all those nostalgic notes for me that, it's very clearly like a send up to shit like Jacko, most obviously, or like Night of the Scarecrow or whatever. And then there's a little bit of a Goosebumps vibe in there that Chris cites. I've never seen it, but he made it, so he knows more than I do about it. I just think it's like a rad send up to killer scarecrow / pumpkin headed dude type movies and just slashers in general. I like that it really captures that Halloween vibe, and it's just overall a really great time, And then the second one comes in and is like the perfect, hilarious, goofy sequel to the first one. And obviously we'll get into more of the origins and the decisions to do that kind of stuff once we get Chris up in this mofo. But I guess, a quick precursor. Do you have a preference between the two? Is there one that you like more than the other?
Actually, I don't know if I liked either better than the other, to tell you the truth. They both had some positives and negatives. Like the first one, I did like the fact that he was killing people with a candle. And there's just something, entertaining about that. As far as the second one, it had a lot of cool meta to it. Almost like a Friday the 13th Part 5 in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of turns the whole thing on its head, introduces some new crazy outside elements into the mix. It's kind of everything that sequels are supposed to be, right? It pumps up the ridiculousness. Hey, Chris, how's it going, buddy? Let me get these out of your way there. We're just finishing our first impressions here, so you're in here at a good time.
And obviously we'll get into more of the origins and the decisions to do that kind of
but
stuff.
Yeah, there's a definitely,
but I do see
perfect sequel thing going on there with I think he's having some echo issues with the second one. Most sequels are they try to be the fun sequel if they're going to be a good sequel, and I think it's a good way to take it. So, all right, can you hear us, bud?
Yeah.
There we go. We had a little bit of a reverb situation there, but we're cool now. So
Yeah, I had bad. It was on my end.
Hey, I was plagued with technical difficulties over here getting this set up. I think as soon as the internet knew that you were going to come on, it just decided to make everything over here not work for a minute. So, we've done our first impressions, this is actually Septum Sin's second ever Seaver flick. He started with Filthy McNasty.
Oh man,
Maybe not the best spot.
you've got so. I mean, you got way better films to watch.
It was a connection to X Strike Studios that got me to watch Filthy McNasty, because there was somebody that worked with that worked on River City Rumble, Rampage. I can't remember the name.
Oh, okay. So yeah, those guys, they didn't make movies until after they did movies with me. There was 2 people involved. You know, and they turned out to be real shitheads, and that's why they're not in LVP anymore. That was a long time ago. Those 2 people were really only a part of my stuff for about a year, and then they went off and started making those video game movies. But yeah, I mean, you know, Filthy McNasty. What do you say? Oof.
It's filthy. It's nasty.
Yeah. But I mean, Septum, you really got to see some of the other stuff. You know, there's so much stuff that those are. I mean, I would say they're pretty bad impressions for first stuff to watch. I mean, with Death o' Lantern, at least it's meant to be the way it is. Filthy McNasty was a whole other beast entirely. You know?
I enjoy them thoroughly, but
I like 4. I like part 4.
I like 4 quite a bit. I think that's stuff that you probably should dive into after you've cut your teeth on a few of the more accessible Seaver flicks. I'll give you a short list again. I did it a while back, but we'll give you a refresher course, Brandon. So, and do you got any questions for him going into this, Cody? Let's kick this off, man. Let's just dive into it. We'll talk about Death Lantern 1 first. So,
yeah, I'm maybe not specific movie, but if you want to go into a little bit of the origins of doing Warlock home video.
Good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, Warlock was essentially, so I had been making movies, you know, since I was 7 years old, 1984, all that shit, backyard dumb shit. And then around 14 in 1991, I was like, you know, I'm going to put a name to this. I'm going to call it Low Budget Pictures. And I started like writing really, you know, rudimentary shitty scripts and, you know, 5 pages long, whatever, 10 pages long, and sort of taking it a little more seriously. And that's when Low Budget Pictures started. So I did that LBP until 2011. And by that point, I was getting really burnt out making these types of movies and working for the same sort of 3 different companies over and over and over again. And at that point, they weren't paying as much as they were anymore. And it just wasn't fun. And so with Warlock, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to shut down Low Budget Pictures, and I want to do this thing where I can go back to what it was like when I was just running around with my VHS camcorder, making dumb movies with neighborhood friends and family. And I started Warlock Home Video, and I thought it would be funny if it was like if we played it off like it was a real company from back in the 80s that went, you know, tits up in like the 90s. You know, like they made so many shit movies that it tanked the company. And so that's really where Warlock came from. And so it was a true like full moon Charles Band, Roger Corman type thing where we just threw out a bunch of titles and then had an artist make covers.
That's the way.
We were like, okay, this is this, and this is what we're gonna do. And so, but we would do it as if it were, you know, lost titles from back then. So we went out with the video cameras, we shot bad acting, bad dialogue, bad special effects, bad camera work, bad lighting, you know, tried to play it a little straight. Not so much in part 2, but in part 1, we definitely, tried to play it straight as if it was something that you would have picked up off the shelf at a video store.
And you nailed it with the first one, especially. Like, it does
With
definitely
Death
feel
of Lantern
like
for
that.
sure. Diabecue was the first one we did, and it was a little too hammy. It was played. I mean, it didn't have that authenticity, and so with Death of Lantern, I really sort of, tried to think back at all those movies that inspired me growing up and that I was renting at video stores. A lot of shot on video stuff I was renting in the late 80s and early 90s. And that was the stuff that was really inspiring me and pushing me to say, hey, I can do this too.
Right.
And so with Death of Lantern, yes, 100% agree. I think we all sort of, really got the footing and we nailed it. And, so much so that there was, when we first put it out, there was so many people who were saying like, oh, I remember Death of Lantern. I rented Death of Lantern on VHS. Yeah. And it's just like, come on, guys. I mean, once Seaver fans sort of saw it and they were like, oh, wait, this is all the Seaver crew. This is all the LVP people, like, what is this,
Right.
But it was awesome. It was fun to like come right out of the gate and like be successful with it. I had edited, so we shot Death of Lantern one weekend, probably like the week before Halloween, or no, the week before Cinema Wasteland of October 2011. And I had it all edited and packaged and ready to go on VHS for Cinema Wasteland a week after we shot it.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
nuts, dude.
We had Diabecue and Death of Lantern sort of as the first like
Unearthed titles from
we brought them back, and we had like the clamshell VHS and everything. We did a bunch of them, and
I
that
would
show,
love one of those on the shelf.
that show we sold out like, I mean, so fast. We didn't have
bet, man.
Like Friday we were sold out. Like we didn't have anything for the rest of the weekend to sell at the convention, so we were like, holy shit, this is going to be great. This is awesome.
The covers alone, I would have purchased them for. And Diabecue I haven't seen yet, and I know you're not like, you're less than pleased with it, but I do have a copy that's going to be on the way here soon. And honestly, that cover art is dope. Like I would hang it on the wall.
We got this guy. He's his name is Jeff Sisson. He's an artist out in Kansas City, Missouri. He worked a lot with Trent Haga and Trauma guys, and he had a death metal band that was popular, but he's a great artist. And
is that the song in part 2 with the weed whacker scene?
I believe so, yeah. And Trent sort of hooked me onto him, and Jeff just 100% got what we were doing. And I just threw out the titles to him and said, this is what the plot is of these titles, go nuts. And so he made like a whole series of the covers for us.
I'm sure that death metal background has something to do with his love of gnarly art, as well as his his love for horror. That's pretty great. It's great to know that's I did not obviously know that. Wasn't the title that was supposed to kill Warlock Stop or Your Mom's a Mummy?
Stop or My Mom's a Mummy.
Or My Mom's a Mummy. Yeah, that's so genius.
We still have like really shitty, we still have a bunch of stuff that everybody sort of says, hey, are we ever going to do this? Like we have Death Skate 88. We've got Blood from a Minotaur's Skull.
Yeah, that's another one that I really
like. We have
like.
The Shingles.
Fuck yeah, dude. And that's the beauty of the Warlock concept, is they could just remain lost until you guys decide to do it,
Yeah.
Wasn't the original run something like 3 years, and then you guys went on to Midnight Kids, wasn't it, for a bit?
So Midnight Kids, that was like I'm not really gonna get too much into it, but Midnight was like that was going to be a whole different thing. We were still going to do Warlock, but Midnight was basically Clint Kelly ruined all that. So
Damn it,
that's
Clint.
that's why you always hear me call him the betrayer. There's so much to that. There's a lot of things that happened in 2015 that caused the betrayal to happen. He pulled a lot of dumb shit. But he's still with us, he's still here, but he did some dumb shit, and I'll never let him.
He seems like a real fun dude. I'm glad that you've kept him around.
I'll never let it down.
Yeah, you might forgive, but you'll never forget.
Yeah.
So Death a Lantern, for anybody that might be uninitiated, is basically a play off of the old, Killer Pumpkin Man thing, where he's comes and he's got to kill 6 kids because that's what fucking Killer Pumpkin Men do. It's just a thing. Yeah. I personally really appreciate the touch of his background almost being like a reverse Cropsy. Because, it's always like the kid's playing the prank on some motherfucker and he gets burned or some shit. And then he's coming back for revenge. But with Stingy Jack, our killer in Death a Lantern, he was the prankster. He was just like, fuck those kids. I hate those kids. So he's going around just being horrible and just pranking the shit out of them, which is really kind of in the Halloween
It's
spirit.
Actually real.
Yeah, it is.
Jack thing. We just looked up the lore of Halloween and pumpkins and the pumpkin lantern, jack-o'-lanterns and all that stuff, and we just took elements of what the tales were and threw them into this shit movie.
Right. And I'm not super familiar with that stuff. I actually only would have known that it was real through your talk with Meredith, actually, on making a Crapster piece. And I find that fascinating. Definitely something I'd like to look into more. But from like a blind perspective, just looking at it as a horror fan, that's immediately what I thought. It was like, oh shit, this isn't like Cropsy where the kids started the fire. This motherfucker started the fire in this one, and so he just comes back, and I think Chris forgot to write him coming back, so he's just back, baby.
Yeah, man, he's just there. I didn't care. The warlocks aren't really supposed to have a lot of meat. The shot on video stuff. It's just like, though. Whatever. Just like get in there and have fun and get out. It's there's not a lot to the shot on VHS stuff that we did.
Speaking of something we did skip over is the intro from the Warlock. We get a double dose of it in this. We get Warlock and Son of Warlock in this double feature. I'm a particularly strong fan of the Son of Warlock bit. It'll make your butt scream or whatever. That's so good. Isn't that River? That's your son, right?
That was my son from back then. Yeah.
So cute and legitimately funny. But the first one is pretty great too, man. Every time he hits that line about like the kids, can they stop them or stop him? Will they stop him? That just it fills me with joy, man.
That's in all of them. Yeah.
So were those all just like shot in your basement or something?
It's shot wherever I am living at that particular time. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it changes different locations,
It's almost like a documentation of Chris's random storage. And like, I think there's some fabric softener in the background and one of the handles.
Yeah. That's Andrew who plays the Warlock. The whole Warlock thing, the intro guy, we're just poking fun at, the brain damage stuff. From the 90s where he would turn around and go like, greetings, Gorehound.
What's funny is I caught on that and I was trying to remember the time frame on if that's who you were going after or not. Because like he's got the tone exactly. Turn down the lights.
Yeah.
Crank up the volume.
I have to see this shit, man. I mean, this sounds like it's right up my alley. I'm not sure.
It's shot on video stuff, but his name is Darren, and he had a company, Brain Damage, and he'd have like spiky hair and wear leather jacket and sunglasses, and he'd introduce the films, and he'd say like they're the most brutal of all time. So much gore, like shit, shit like that.
That's just great. I obviously, thank you for introducing me to the fact that exists. I was obviously all of it sort of feels a little bit too like I took it as like almost like an Uncle Creepy from Creepy Magazine, or like a Crypt Keeper. It's all the same gimmick, right? The horror host and But now that I know that there's like a thing you guys are riffing on with the way that he's doing that, I just need to see that so bad.
It's pretty spot on too.
You know what's also a cinematic marvel is that fucking graveyard that Chris set up for that opening shot there. Those gravestones must have been hard to move, man.
Yep. Yeah.
I love it
made
though.
of solid styrofoam.
The fucking jack-o'-lanterns just appearing, and there's that sweet like zoom. I don't know how you see little shots like that, especially when it's like a shot on video thing. I always trip on like, how do you guys do that one shot where it like kind of like zooms out and in on that pumpkin almost at the same time? Is there like is that an editing trick? Or
I mean, it's the trombone move. You know, Spielberg is famous for it. Like, you know, it's you're moving one way while the zoom is going a different way. And
I feel so
that gives you
like a trombone. Yeah, I get it.
You know,
oh, it's so cool and simple. I love stuff like that. I mean, it tickles a special place in me, man. Especially knowing that you were doing that shit like in camera with a VHS camcorder or something.
Yeah.
So what are your guys' thoughts on the whole intro scene with the kid, wandering into the graveyard and getting that candle, man? I think that candle effect and the fact that it's still lit on the other side is pure genius.
Oh, I would have been happy if the candle was the main weapon he used throughout the entire film. That just was my favorite murder weapon right there.
It's up there.
It's definitely one of my favorite kills in the movie for sure. And like you said, it's pretty good that actually the candle was stayed lit during that.
Do you recall whose idea that was, Chris? Who
suggested it? I mean, I think we just,
thought it would be funny.
Yeah, it was like it went through and it stayed lit, I mean, we did it again in the remake,
We'll get to that one day, folks. That's gonna be a fun one. I enjoy it to varying degrees. So after that, we're pretty much introduced to the kids, right? We got old Phoebe with the best setup in the world of paying a dude with Pepsis and Fangorias to be able to watch like early matinees before school in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh my God, would I go nuts if I had that setup going on? I would definitely probably wear his Halloween costume that he made for me.
Yeah.
How hard was it for you guys to arrange the ability to? I mean, I know in Wellsville, did you guys shoot this in Wellsville, correct?
Yeah, Wellsville, New York, where I grew up. When I go back there, it's like everybody still knows. Oh yeah, Chris, the guy who made movies, and it's very easy to do whatever I want. And it's a town that hasn't really changed much since the 80s.
It's beautiful.
That's why I keep going back there a lot.
Yeah, it reminds me of here if they didn't stop keeping this place up in like, the early 90s or whatever, and ever developed it beyond Main Street. But, I frequently look at Google images of Wellsville when I watch your movies just to get an idea of what the town is like. And it's got a very quaint sort of frozen in time thing like you're talking about, And that scene with the theater, the fact that you guys were able to swap out the posters and change the marquee and stuff does a huge like service to the film, being like, okay, I believe, even though I know that it's not 1986, for that little while that I'm watching it, I just suspend disbelief, and it's like, all right, look at that Big Trouble in Little China poster. I mean,
so that dude, well, the posters are mine, but that dude who says, Phoebe, that's the guy that owns the theater, and he, he was about my age, and he fancies himself like a, film buff, film historian, he's a boner. He's really like a but he's so like, but he lets us, anytime we want to shoot at the theater, he lets us shoot there, as long as we like give him credit and say like, oh yeah, you know, you can have this or this or this, whatever.
Fangorias and Pepsi.
But
That's what you get, bro.
so he was very cool. You know, that theater, that was my theater. That's been there since I was a kid, you know, and I was born in 77. So it's, you know, it was there before me.
You see Night of the Creeps in that motherfucker?
No. But I saw a lot of fucking movies at that theater. And it's only two, you know, it's a 2-screen theater.
Those are the best, I think, like to just pop in and catch a matinee at, you know.
Yeah, it was fun, you know, and it really lends itself to, again, they hadn't changed that much. I mean, those seats, now they've changed those seats, but those seats in Death of Lantern, I mean, those seats have been there forever.
Yeah.
At that point, they still didn't like go 100% digital at that theater, so it was still 35 millimeter.
Ooh, nice. Well, grainy.
Now they've upgraded and everything, but yeah. So the look is still awesome, and it was great to be able to sort of be there where I grew up and make like these, you know, these Halloween type movies and stuff like that, and it just lent itself to the film. And you know, obviously, it has elements of Monster Squad and, you know, that type of shit. The kids and the fighting monsters and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a great way to set the characters up and pay homage to Night of the Creeps and several other films in one quick, like, you know, scene without make the movie drag, which these films certainly don't drag, folks.
I don't give you time, you know.
Yeah, they're just straight to the point. They kick your ass, you have fun, and you're out of there before you know what even happened, you know. Yeah. And then you just want to watch them again. That also lends to their like replay value, you know.
Yeah, it's fun. I'll see like on Instagram, like through feeds and whatnot, I'll see people like they watch Death of Lantern as part of their like Halloween rotation and shit like that. And these are like just random folks. I don't know them, but it's fun to see like people's lists and stuff. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, same with like Christmas. When Christmas rolls around and people watch Happy Holidays.
Yeah,
and stuff
baby.
Like that. So that's
I can't wait. Spoiler alert. That is what I'm submitting for our Christmas round. It's a diabolical fucking movie, dude. I love it. I've watched it several times this year already, like before the season even started. It's fucking hilarious. Josh is unhinged in that thing. But oh shit, man. Now I'm thinking about Happy Holidays. Totally lost my train of thought. You fellas looked like you had something you wanted to say. Pump it out there, bro. We're here. We're listening.
I don't know, with these movies, I get a throwback to a lot of the, when you do, I mean, obviously you're big 80s fans, just all of the usual 80s quirks, like the two guys high-fiving all the time, and just the dialogue, the grody to the max and all that. Like, it's stuff that I look for now watching your movie, just because, you know, it's gonna, even if it's not an 80s themed movie, something's gonna get snuck in there somewhere that are kind of like little Easter eggs almost for the hardcore fans, I guess. But it's I don't know, not much of a question there, just stuff like, I mean, I'm always popping on your live chat asking about A Nightmare on Vern Street, even though I know you're not going to make it, but there's still a place in here, just hoping that it might happen.
We're never going to stop bringing that up, dude, because it's just the idea exists in our heart, whether it's made or not, you know. On the lingo tip though, where does Coosbane come from? I've heard that.
Coosbane is an 80s put down.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's a harsh one. I thought that was a Seaver invention. I was like,
no, man,
that's well crafted, but
no,
it doesn't mean what it sounds like it means. I mean, it's basically like you're never getting laid, you fuck.
Yeah, it's just a you know, it's just a dumb bullshit Valley girl put down. You know, Coosbane.
I especially like the way Jessie says it in the movie. She, I think, nails it the best. Especially when she's like bummed on the girl for messing up their Halloween party, but we'll get there. So yeah, that was my question on that. What about you, Brandon? You got anything over there before we move on from the introductory scene?
Nope. I mean, to me, the best thing was that start. Love the costume, like the look of the. I like the look of Jet. I like the look of him with the little pumpkin seeds. Were those real pumpkin seeds?
Yeah, we just draped them all over that mask.
Does Casey enjoy pumpkins? Because
I mean, it really didn't get on Casey.
he has to smell that shit. I'm smelling it right now, and
Yeah,
I'm not a huge fan. But it's for the sake of the festivities.
Yeah. And we wanted like a real generic mask. We were sort of going for like Jacko. Have you seen Jacko? It's
Oh, we both just did a watch of that, like sort of subconsciously in preparation for this. Almost, I think. Such a gem.
There's no mouth movement at all. There's nothing happening there. But this voice comes out of Stingy Jack, and it
is a voice indeed, man.
Thing, but we wanted like a big pumpkin head, and So.
Oh, I love it, dude. With the weird tendrily things on his like mouth bits, and it's just great. And Casey is, maybe it's all the teen ape, but I mean, he does pretty better than a lot of people I've seen in like movies like this of projecting through a mask. I'm sure that's probably on account of you telling him to fucking speak up or something so many times over the years. But
it also helped the shrieky voice,
yeah. It all, dude. Do you guys know who Bobby Lee is? For some reason, every time I watch this, I always think that like Bobby Lee, if they were ever to do like a Hollywood version of this, Bobby Lee would be a funny Stingy Jack, because he does basically that same voice a lot of the times when he's doing random impressions. It's just that same voice. But yeah, Casey's great in it. Do you guys have any thoughts on our two initial characters we're introduced to, Phoebe and what's the other girl's name? I had it right on the tip of my brain.
I don't even remember.
Well, I don't feel too bad about it now. It's something. It'll come to me. What do you guys think of them?
I mean, you got the 80s horror girl or horror characters. I mean, or a horror fan. So that was definitely good. Sitting there with all her pixie sticks, just having a good time before school.
Never could fuck with those, man. Those pixie sticks. They make my teeth feel weird.
Oh, we did those all the time. We would take pixie sticks and mix them with Mountain Dew and go for it. That's just like we get into a gaming night and we just stay up all night high on pixie sticks and caffeine. But I like the idea of that kind of horror group that's at the school. That's always a pretty cool thing, that kind of paranormal group. Very, very 80s concept.
Oh, the Scooby-Doo gang. Yeah, it's great. And just them being like fellow horror nerds. I like the whole competitive aspect with our next character, or about how many times they'd seen Night of the Creeps. That just seems fun. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I don't really have much thoughts on the other friend. Obviously, I can't remember her name. But Phoebe's great. I really always love Meredith in all your projects. And there was just something about her even before I started learning details from watching your guys' stuff about how much she helps behind the scenes. A lot of the times, from what I understand, Meredith is basically like the assistant director, assistant to everything, kind of.
I gave her the role of helping me out more than anybody. She will get people in line. She's good at like taking what I say and making it work with everybody else. Because sometimes when you get all of us together, it can be real tough to wrangle everybody.
Right.
And the only time it works for me is if I like get angry or raise my voice, and then people sort of get in line. And I don't like to do that. So Meredith is my sort of go-to, and she'll do it. She doesn't give a fuck. She's like, get your fucking ass up and let's do this. Go, come on. So she does that. And pretty much from the get-go, she joined in 2002.
What was her first movie with you guys?
It's been 20 years since she's done this stuff with us. hers was 12 Inches of Dangling Fury,
There we go.
which is on the Evil Knight Blu-ray as a bonus feature.
It is. She also keeps you kind of on task sometimes too, right? I feel like I remember you guys talking about how you also charged her with making sure you don't bail on good ideas later in the production.
Yeah. I have given her. Yeah, I'll tell her like, listen, if I start to wane on certain things, or if I want to like skimp on things, like kick my ass into shape. Let's don't let me do that. And she's good at that. And we've certainly, we'll butt heads. Because I'm like, well, woman, I'll be like, I told you what to tell me not to do or to do, but if I nix it, that is the end. That is the end of it. And she will argue like, no, but you told me, and I'll be like, Meredith, I'm telling you now, it ain't happening.
Right.
But she will keep like,
right. She doesn't just
no,
cave in.
this is what you said, and I know you'll be upset if we don't do it, and blah 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 blah. So we'll butt heads, but it's all good.
It's good to have that person though, for sure. And Meredith also backs it up with playing some real fun characters and stuff, some of which she likes less than others. Like I think it's Carnage for the Destroyer is one that she's not too stoked on that.
Yeah, she doesn't like playing characters that are supposed to be like overly sexual. She's never really liked that. She likes to just play she's very good at the straight woman, the one who's just not as crazy or goofy. She really likes being like one of the people, one of the gang. But she excels at playing, creatures as well.
Could she deliver some of your dialogue just so good, man?
Yeah.
She really seems to get your sense of humor. So shouts out to Meredith. She's got some wonderful what do you call it? Like plates and cups and stuff that she sells.
Yeah. She creates all that.
If I remember, I'll throw the relevant links down there so you guys can, Christmas season's coming up. Some of it's pretty cool. Thinking about getting some for my mom, actually. So, that's pretty rad. But next, we're introduced to the MVPs of the movie, man, and the basis for a drinking game I'm going to be calling Let's Go to the Emergency Room. And that is Patrick and
Lucas.
Lucas, yeah. Lance and Lucas are probably the duo that a lot of people are super familiar with.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of the, am I wrong to say, original combo of Patrick and Lucas. I think that it's just fucking adorable,
Yeah, Patrick and Lucas, that's really what it was going to be, continuing to go forward in all the movies. And Lance is introduced in Dive-A-Q.
Right, but a different Lance from what you were saying. If I
remember it's still Alex.
It's him, but it's like different than what he became.
Yeah, I really upped the.
He's one of my favorite characters in your whole universe, man. Him and Lucas, they're great. But there's just something so wholesome about Patrick and Lucas. And if you were to take a drink, even of beer, every time that they high five in this movie, you might fucking die.
Sean is just so busy, so it became sort of like a mix and match. Like all of these people know each other, sort of thing, and so Lance would be hanging out with Lucas, but Patrick could come back. Like Patrick shows up in Dingleberries, but Lucas isn't in Dingleberries, that type of thing. It's sort of all in universe, I guess. But as soon as I put Lucas and Lance together, it was just like, well, you basically missed out, Sean. Like these guys are where it's at. These are the two idiots. But But Patrick, I've written Patrick in other things, but it's always Sean being like, "I got to bail, man. I can't do this."
Right, which is because he's a treat in everything that he's done for you. Also, shout out to him as Shawnee Ramon, probably still one of my favorite things ever. His real name is Sean, and we'll put his relevant links below too. He's part of VHSPS.com.
VHSPS, yep, that's his company, and that's why he's always busy, because he's at a convention every fucking weekend.
Yeah, I've picked up several flicks from him since we had our initial talk. I got my Star Wars holiday special off of them. Hawk the Slayer, some other things. Yeah, good times. What's up? That's different, dude. Do you want to say hi to Chris? I know you enjoy that Seavage.
It was the same exact stand, same exact people.
Oh yeah. They had some posters available at the Crypticon as well. Nami got a bunch of Stranger Things stuff off of their booth as well. So cool stuff. Definitely check out Sean's. I believe Septum Sim got his what was it? The Stooge Mania off of VHSPS. So. Yes, I did. I commandeered your boo bucket to chill my beers. Okay.
The drinks inside that pumpkin.
No, I'm not going to put drinks in the pumpkin. I'm going to put a candle in there.
Well, some people do like to ferment their drinks and stuff inside of pumpkins.
Well, I'm not some people. I will talk to you when we're done with this. Go play some Xbox or something. So, Patrick and Lucas. Absolutely amazing combo. Absolutely amazing introduction for the characters, letting them in on the fact that one of their classmates was murdered, but it's no big deal. He kind of treated everyone like puke. And, I just love Phoebe taking to it, and that other girl who we can't remember, pretty much just, being a stick in the mud about the whole thing, and Phoebe just doesn't care. You'd think if they're best friends, she'd be used to it at this point, but they are pretty young in context. So,
yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts on Lance and Lucas? And would you ever take me up on the challenge of that drinking game? I'm not even sure I'll ever do it myself. I'm afraid of it. I was starting to count how many times they high-fived, and I ended up giving up. There's so many little ones they sneak in on the side.
So if you're afraid of that, I'd be even more afraid. I don't think I could get through the first 2 shots. So,
oh, dude, you'd have to be an absolute champion to get through like that first exchange, especially if you're doing it with like shots and not just taking like swigs of beer. Oh man, you're probably going to the hospital after the first 5 minutes of those dudes being on screen. So I don't recommend it, actually. It seems like a mad errand to try to even attempt it.
But isn't the high five just the whole symbol of the late 80s and early 90s? And of course, so. Freeze framing on the high five, especially,
Which we do in a different movie with those guys. But I mean, the high fiving. It really was because of, that sort of mentality in the 80s and dude bros always high-fiving and, the dumbest fucking shit coming out of people's mouths, and people thought it was awesome and they'd high five and shit like that. So, I saw my uncles do it a lot too.
I'll bust a high five with someone for sure, but it has to be like for a special thing, not just because someone said something funny. I might actually, I've done that before, where someone, but they offered it, and it was like, yeah, that was pretty good, kind of a thing.
And that's become like a running gag as well.
It does, and the sunglasses as well, the taking them off and putting them on. You could run that drinking game in part 2 with Lucas just by himself.
Yeah, that continues actually in Wellsville Nights as well. The glasses thing.
It's beautiful, man. Those little gags and the fact that you run them through other stuff that you do, they're not just limited to the characters they begin with, is pretty great. One of my favorite bits to do with the high fives and stuff is the behind the scenes bits for it, where they're practicing and Lucas is trying to practice putting the glasses on, and he's like stabbing himself. Looks like Brandon had to step away. You got anything on these dudes, Cody?
No, I mean they're definitely the quintessential, generic '80s dudes. So I mean, definitely what you would see run around the '80s or in any '80s films. There's always the two buddies, the two dudes. So I mean, they were definitely played to perfection.
Yeah, I like to think that, especially once it forms into the more reliable duo of Lucas and Lance, they kind of become Chris's like almost a Bill and Ted or a Wayne and Garth. They're like, they're kind of those dudes in his universe to me.
Oh,
I love them.
Yeah, that's that was our. But again, it's a there's so many weird characters that it's fun to pair. We want to pair Lance Lucas and Shawnee Ramone, and we want to pair Skippy and Leo and shit like that, and we want them to all be together. And I have so many ideas still for a lot of those guys, a lot of those characters.
Wasn't there supposed to be a movie called Lance and Lucas Save Easter or some shit like that? I feel like I remember you mentioning that.
It was going to be something. It was going to be a Lance and Lucas focused movie. Yeah, we had one that was just called Tits the Motion Picture.
Fuck yeah, dude. And Hamburger the Motion Picture or something.
And it was all about, Lance and Lucas finding the greatest pair of tits that they could both double fuck,
Well, you got an investor on both of those projects, but just let us know. But yeah, go ahead.
Stupid. Yeah.
Sorry, man. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's it. I mean, just dumb stupidity. It's great. I love writing for those guys. I like writing for most of my friends. They get it, and they've been doing it for so long with me that they understand the pure absurdness of it all. And man, it's a joy. It's a joy to watch them like bring that stuff to life. And a lot of the time, the screw ups are because I'm laughing behind the scenes. I am just like losing it, and I just can't.
It's a pleasure to watch people watch this stuff for the first time too. I'm so very excited for Brandon to be able to experience a lot more of your stuff, and I've shown it frequently to my cousins, to my kid, to my local friends and stuff, and it's such a pleasure to watch them sort of tap into the stupid after a while, and they start getting, they start recognizing the repeated like in jokes and stuff like that. It's something you definitely have going on that not too many filmmakers we encounter have, if we're quite honest. Joe Sherlock's about the only other one I can think of that's got like this sort of through logic through all of his movies, where it's like you recognize little things from Joe Sherlock movies, like, oh, that cat will think twice before doing the laundry again, or those little things that he throws in there that are totally nonsensical to the plot of the film, really, but it's just like a little Joeism or a Chrisism. It's like the things that you guys put in there that make it your stuff.
Yeah.
And this birthed several things that we're fond of, and hopefully Brandon and eventually Jacob will become more fond of. Jake, our good buddy from our other podcast, watched Filthy McNasty for the first time, also with Brandon, and swore that he'd never watch another one of your movies. And I'm bound and determined to change that, because I think stuff like Geek War, the Weirdsies, even Evil Knights, I think would be right up Jake's alley. Those are more his speed,
Sex Squad.
I think Jake would find that more funny because of his friendship to me and Brandon than he would the movie itself, but he'd probably dig it, maybe.
It's actually kind of funny that I had as many of your films in my collection as I had before I even had thought about you as a director. I had probably about 5 or 6 in the collection already. It just was a matter of, these look cool, I want to get to them eventually.
Oh yeah. And then I started shoving them down your guys' throat, basically. When I started really collecting them, Dave was slacking as well, so I was just buying Dave's movies for him so that he would have them in case I ever wanted to discuss them. Because unfortunately, there is a plethora of them available on streaming, but a lot of them aren't as well. That's just the nature of the beast. But
Yeah.
it's better to just buy them and have them anyways because they're rad, and a lot of them are hand labeled by Chris. So.
Right.
We are
And you get-
introduced to all of our characters. Oh, what's that, Cody?
And you get all the extras by buying the physical stuff. And there's definitely one thing you are very good at doing, Chris. You definitely pack the movies with bonus features. And I'm sure you do that because you appreciate that stuff on stuff that you buy. So know that people will also.
Yeah, I love making ofs. I love documentaries. I love commentaries, all that stuff. Like, I love it. And, I also feel like you're getting a little more with my stuff because it can be so, like 60 to 70 minutes and then you're out. And so I feel like let's pack it with extras so they have a little more entertainment value, once the movie's over with. And even with a lot of the older stuff that we're doing with the double features and stuff, like let's pack them. And thankfully, since the late 80s, I've shot so much of my life on VHS that I have a lot of material that I'm able to put together a lot of fun behind the scenes and
you were a little camcorder kid. Do you have like old, family Christmases or birthday parties or anything like that in any of those archives? Because that would be probably a rad thing for a crep from the 80s is you like doing a stream where you do like a commentary on your fucking 12th birthday party or something. I remember this kid. He was a dick or like,
it's really weird. Like my family, what's left of my family in Wellsville, they're kind of stingy with pictures and, memory material. It's like pulling teeth for me to get that stuff.
They're always afraid you're going to lose it. That's the thing. They're like,
the pictures that I do have from back then, I have like stolen from the family because I'm like, God damn it, I want these. It's so ridiculous. And then like some of the VHS I haven't even like looked at in a while, so I'm sure there's stuff. I basically target all the movie centric stuff that I have.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm sure there's.
Well, if you ever run across it,
out there.
Solid idea, man. I've been watching this channel lately where these dudes that were like metalheads in the 80s and they made this video where they were like little kids going to the record store. I'm sure everyone's seen it around on social media.
Yeah, I know.
It's a treat to watch those guys like commentate on this weird time capsule from when they were little kids. And then they actually did a follow-up videos where they go back to the actual spots and walk around, and it's just so cool. So I actually kind of immediately thought of you and your channel with that. But
yeah, it sucks. Like Zach Oliveras, who did the documentary about me, and it's not in the documentary, but he was like, oh, we have to drive down to your hometown and I want to get all this footage. And we did. And it's not anywhere in the documentary. And I'm like, oh man, like I took him to so many spots, it was so awesome. And I went to spots that I hadn't gone to in 26 years, 27 years or some shit. And
that's amazing, dude. Hopefully that ends up on the physical of it.
Yeah. I mean, he says he's going to, there's a bunch of stuff. There's people that he interviewed that didn't end up on the doc and that I don't know about. So I would hope that that's what it would be on the physical disc,
I would hope that at some point he would, get all that stuff on there. And then maybe in the future you guys could do a thing because you got the whole like Splatter Rampage years documented on that Tempe/Makeflix set. So it would be really cool to see another companion box set that's like the other stuff, and then that documentary is like the sick Criterion style bonus discs at the end is kind of the Zach doc.
It sucks because Ron Bonk and SRS Cinema, they own like 10 of my stuff and they're not doing anything with it. I've tried to get the rights back to a lot of them. He won't sell them back to me. I ask him about, hey, why don't you do what, Tempe did? Why don't you do what JR did and put all of my movies together and do a Blu-ray set? You're like, nope. It's just like, all right.
Yeah. Let's just not make money on them, bro, because they don't even fucking sell half the stuff.
No,
like,
they
most
don't.
of the time it's out of stock. So unless you're super lucky, you're just not going to get it. Or I guess with the new sets, they've at least got Blood Fart back out there, and I'd love to see those cleaned up, but at least I've got them. So
I saw that, and I'm sure they're as shitty as they were.
It's not the worst that they could be, I feel like, because they actually did include trailers for all of them too, and then I feel like trailers for even the other stuff of yours that's not on there, which of course they're gonna do.
Did he do the correct aspect ratio?
I'm sure probably not. Like, we make a lot of allowances for shit media here with the kind of stuff that we're into. So I mean, I'm devil's advocate right now. Obviously, they would be much better done through you guys with the proper cleanup and special features. There's no special features or commentaries or anything that.
But we made them.
Right.
We made them and just did not put them on anything. It's so infuriating. It's just like.
Hopefully we can get him to see the light eventually and maybe even team up with fucking JR and Makeflix and those dudes and like do it up proper. And he could stand to make a lot more money doing that, I would think, than he's doing just sitting on them.
I've even people have been asking for so long about a Blood Fart 3, and he just. It's like, okay.
It's something I see multiple times now with a lot of. I've had, a good example. Nigel Bach, which did the Bad Ben series, Breaking Glass. Basically, got the rights from him from 1 through 9. Now they won't release them on anything, basically, and he's stuck. So he's only got the rights to one of his films, and that's kind of sad.
Thankfully, I've made so many movies that I still own the rights to a large chunk of them. But, there's like 30 of them out there that I don't own the rights to. And I don't see any of the streaming. I see nothing. I see no money from any of these companies.
Well, I want to say, if I remember right, I think when they came out with that first trilogy, the Saturday the 14th or Friday the 12th or something, I think I'd sent you a picture about it and you didn't even know it was coming out.
Yeah, I had no idea because they don't have to tell me anything.
They should,
They sure. I would like to know, but no, they didn't. He doesn't. No.
It's not like SRS is fucking Blumhouse or some crazy big studio where they're too busy to send Chris an email. I mean, come on, boys. It should be more of a community with some more. It frustrates me to no end that stuff counts, and I can only imagine how you feel about it, man. Thankfully, this stuff has not suffered the same fate. We got 2 of these, a remake, and maybe a Death Lantern 3 someday.
There will be. Yeah, we will do Death Lantern 3. We have the story is already planned out and everything, and there will be a 3rd one.
Very good news. So movie gets real rapid fire really once the characters are introduced. The whole movie's kind of a rapid fire affair. But once they're introduced, they're pretty sure that there's something weird about these killings. They've heard that there's jack-o'-lanterns being left at the scene of the crime, much like I'm going to leave this one at the scene of this crime tonight. But Phoebe is pretty sure that she's kind of heard some stuff about this before. It seems familiar. So she goes and she does some research. Turns out that it's the stingy Jack fella who we've already talked about. And they set off, in proper Scooby-Doo style to catch this sumbitch and put an end to his reign of terror. And they decide to use our annoying friend that we can't remember the name of as bait. And it works pretty well, I guess. I mean, it eliminates her from the movie. So then we get her a much needed upgrade with Heather Maxim as, Scarlet. The badass, sort of Joan Jett punker chick that's into gore and tits and just, violence. and she's pretty fun. I gotta admit, this is one of my favorite Heather roles for whatever reason. I think it's just that gore and tits line, and then just how well she delivers, like, the whole "this is a way of life," like that line, or when she gives that whole speech to
Yeah,
oh god damn it,
to
Meredith, yeah. That whole thing is touching. I mean, it alludes to some backstory that's probably irrelevant. And you get that a lot in these types of movies, like it doesn't really matter. She lost a loved one. She knows what it sucks sometimes, but you just gotta get in there. Just get busy with it. So yeah, they end up basically figuring out that the best way to catch Stingy Jack is to go to where all the kids are going to be, because he needs to get the last of his souls to be reborn. So they head on to one of the hoppinest fucking movie theater parties I've personally ever seen. There had to have been, tens of people there.
Five. I mean, that's also a running joke.
Yeah, you guys have definitely hosted some poppin' parties in your movies before that were of a larger scale, but you do a good job of making this one seem pretty lively.
I mean, it's always been like LBP parties are just terrible. We talk like this is gonna be the biggest fucking party around, and then there's like 6 people there.
I don't know, that fucking Ski Wolf one is pretty insane, dude.
Well, again, so maybe there's like 11 in that one, but
hell yeah, it's thick.
Yeah.
For those LBP parties. Amazing scene. I mean, obviously they come in their respective costumes. Lucas dresses up as like Lucas as Freddy Krueger, which I think is pretty great. It's like not even a Freddy Krueger outfit. It's just him with Freddy Krueger stuff.
Yeah, Lucas Krueger.
Yeah, and then Patrick comes as zombie Michael Jackson, which is a pretty good one too. I love how he like fucking Michael kicks that chick at that one point. Like, it's so good. And then obviously Meredith, Phoebe, is dressed as
Jack Burton.
Jack Burton, yeah, from Big Trouble in Little China. I guess you guys couldn't get a hold of that. That T-shirt probably wasn't widely available maybe yet in 2011. I don't know that the massive nostalgia craze had.
I'm sure it was, but we weren't going to pay for it.
Right. So they settle for one that just says Pork Chop Express, which I kind of want, actually. Yeah. I just want a shirt that says Pork Chop Express.
It was also,
for people that don't know, like out of context, it's just a funny set of words.
We kind of made it. It's also like, this is the 80s. There definitely wasn't a lot of Pork Chop Express, Big Trouble in Little China shirts going around back then. Right. So it just seemed like, Phoebe would make her own, So
it makes sense. Or did the guy at the movie theater make it?
No, that's a different.
Wig looked pretty suspect.
That's a different costume altogether, actually.
How many stories has that wig fucking told, man? Thing looked like it'd been around for a while.
That was the Marge wig, yeah.
Yeah, Marge Baglione, if I'm not mistaken. Underappreciated character in the. Well, I think there's people that love Marge, like you've mentioned, and there's people that just don't get it. I love the character. She's one I frequently just about die laughing over.
Yeah, when Jesse was in it, Marge was. I loved writing Marge. Yeah.
I bet, dude. Isn't she the one that's like a Hershey Highway this day and age? That's one of my favorite things I've ever heard in one of your movies, man. So what do you guys think of the party? What do you guys think of the climax here? Obviously, we got the zombie random girl coming back and making out with Lucas at no, small effort on Clint's part. Sounds like from the special features, he was not hyped on it, but they made do. And it turned out real well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like the hand through the guy effect that was there. I thought that was fun. And the way that they ended Jack was also fun. Yeah, reminiscent of Nightmare on Elm Street, but I do like that Jack didn't quite think that part through.
Yeah. they just absolutely fuck him up. Like it's just instant kill. Because I don't know, you spent that long being a killer pumpkin, dude. You might think you can just cackle at them and they're gonna run away in fear once you're real, but apparently you just get a bat to the face.
Yeah,
That's
he's
the end.
definitely taken off guard. He's an idiot, you know.
He really is.
Cindy Jack is a moron, you know. So I mean, he does it again in the remake.
So when they smashed the like pumpkin at the end, or smashed his head at the end, was that like another pumpkin under the pumpkin mask, or what was that?
We actually just put chunks of pumpkin on the mask and then just edit it real quick, so it just, as soon as the bat hit, it just sprayed all that stuff. So, you know, we really didn't. I think underneath the mask at that point was just like some clothing or whatnot to give it a little bit of girth, a little plumpness, but
it did look like it damaged the mask on the one like around the eye. Is that just a trick of the quality of the camera and the lighting, or
probably? Yeah, I mean, it's this, you know, we use the mask in part two, and I got it in the basement.
Oh, that's amazing, bro. It looks cleaner in part two. I think you guys were I don't know if that's intentional, that it's like less gross looking in the second one, or if
we just didn't put anything on it. We were just like, fuck it.
This Ninja Stars didn't quite work out, so I think you guys probably were just, let's save the time of doing that.
The mask was washed, and then we didn't even, you know, I think Meredith may have said, do we want to put pumpkin guts on it? And I was like, no, who cares?
I think it was the better choice. It's as cool as that is in the first one. It's like he's got a sleeker look to him, I think, head to toe. In the second one too, is his outfit gels a little bit better with the mask, with the burlap, and you know, I like it a lot, which we will get to. But you guys wrap up any questions you got with Chris. I have to step over here for a moment. I will be right back, and then we're going to jump into part two and hammer that bad boy out real fast.
Quick shit.
We were talking about how you wrapped that one and had it for sale at that convention, that same, within the next week or within that week. Did the kind of word of mouth kind of extend after that? Like, was it still pretty successful where you guys were selling it quite a bit? And were you still just doing solely VHS for a while and then eventually went to DVD, or?
It was always supposed to be like, you know, the movies are back after 20 some years, and for the first time on DVD, digitally remastered and shit like that. So like the VHS was going to be a limited release, and the big thing was, you know, the first time on DVD. So we did both, and for a while we had a clamshell that had a spot for a disc as well, so they would get the VHS and the DVD together in the clamshell. And you know, we did that. Even Evil Knight had one of those releases, the double VHS and DVD. And then we stopped because getting all of that was becoming very tough to find that stock on eBay, because we would get them from eBay. Those specific cases and the VHS, the blank VHS. And so, you know, but yeah, I mean, all through Warlock, it was awesome. It was successful for us. You know,
it definitely looked like something filmed in the 80s. I felt like that was very convincing. The way that it came across to me felt like something that I saw on the low budget features of the early 2000s, but the general look felt like the 80s. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, and again, because of how we were shooting it and where we were shooting it, it really lent itself to you know, sort of giving that authenticity. It also helped, like, you know, that cop car we had was from 1985, and
Dude,
a friend of his just happened to still have that car, and she was just like, "Hey, can we use it?" Like, sure, whatever. So
That riff on Power of Power of Love that the dude is singing in there as Lucas steals the police file is one of my favorite moments in the whole movie. It is so good. Was that you singing that?
that's Casey.
Oh, okay. It's hard to tell between you guys sometimes, but I think that's because you guys grew up, and so some of your voices. Casey's very tapped in also to like your facial expressions. You could tell
Well,
you
we're
guys probably
cousins.
dorked around a lot doing that as kids. So you guys
I mean,
have
yeah,
like,
we are relatives. Our fathers are brothers, and so the same
it's
blood
great.
runs through. Silly blood runs through us.
And there's probably big hype made about Teen Ape with Casey, but I think almost just about every time that he's in your movies, I love Casey's characters. I mean, he's got a fun way about him. So yeah, definitely an asset as well. I think him and Meredith would be up there on the MVP ratings for me when it comes to the SeaverVerse, because it wouldn't be the same, I don't think, without them,
I would agree with you about Meredith, but Casey, man. I mean,
well, see, he's your cousin though. So.
yeah, but I mean, he's really not in. Yes, he's in a lot of them, but he's not in a lot of them.
He isn't in a lot of them, but the ones he's in, I feel like Casey's always a highlight for me.
Meredith has she wins that. She is in the most of the films.
I feel like I remember you guys talking about that on one of her discussions, and who was second to her? I feel like that was mentioned at one point, like the other person that had been
second might be Casey. Meredith is at 33.
That's insanity, dude.
No,
That's
none
amazing.
of the other people have even touched her.
Including Casey, and you're fucking related to him. Yeah.
Well, that's because he's 4 years behind me. When you're that young and doing this stuff, 4 years then is even younger feeling.
Yeah.
Not so much now, but back then he was like, he's my little cousin, and I was scaring him with movies and shit like that. So he didn't join until he was a teenager. I didn't pull him into the movie making until he was like 15, 16 years old.
Is that like around the Anal Paprika era right
Before
there? Before that,
yeah.
What's the first one Casey was in?
Shit. Well, most of the stuff never really got finished.
Is he not in your Friday the 13th on the Fright Fest, or is that just a guy with a curly wig that resembles curly wigs you put on Casey later? Or actually just curly hair?
He's in raw footage.
Maybe if that's on the disc, maybe that's what I remember.
Yeah, he's in raw footage with a big curly wig on.
Yeah, the fur wig. There's something too about Casey when he's got that wig on that just is so fucking funny, bro. I love the dude. He's a treasure. All you guys are, but yeah, Casey I think does a great job in this. I think everyone does a great job in it. Even the girl that we can't remember her name is like fine. I feel like I've seen her in other movies of your guys's.
She's in Sex Squatch. She's in Dingleberries. She's in Happy Holidays. I just don't remember her character name, which is ridiculous. I mean, she plays the same character in Dingleberries.
Adrian, isn't it?
Oh, it is Adrian. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
It came to me. I think her name is like her fake name for Warlock is one of those like
it's
Anne
Marie
Nouveau or something, or Nouveau, yeah. We got my dad back here letting my dog out. Check that.
Father.
Look at this fucking relic. Early humans walking among us. I don't even know where to go with this from there. So basically, we got the ending. It ends, on a real abrupt note with Stingy Jack dead, Jack-o'-lantern lighting up, and it's, the end for now, because very clearly the people at Warlock back in 1986 had designs on a sequel. So how long did it take you to get into the sequel, Chris? What was the process in between?
Let's see. We shot the first one in 2011, and we shot the second one in 2013.
Yeah.
Again in October of 2013. So literally just 2 years later. And at that time, we had already shot Sex Squatch, Dingleberries, Happy Holidays, PIA.
Oh, love it.
And Phantom of the Grindhouse.
Both those are favorites.
That was all in between. There was a lot of stuff in between. And, we just had so much fun doing that first Death of Lantern that it was just like, hey, let's do another one. And we had just that year Katie and I moved into that house that's in Death of Lantern 2, and that we were just like, well, hell, we'll just shoot it around the house, and I just came up with this dumb like Halloween house like therapy thing.
Dude, I think that's one of the better gimmicks maybe I've ever seen in a horror movie, actually. Like a rehab center for kids traumatized by the events. Like, it almost makes sense that it would be in like Nightmare on Elm Street or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which we kind of got with Freddy's Dead in a real lame way, but
I mean, the Death of Lantern movies are meant to be a riff on Freddy and Jason and shit like that. Like, we talk about here just in the group, we talk about how the Death of Lantern movies are gonna go until like 2025.
Oh,
they're just gonna
throw
keep
in and throw in the middle like the final one, and then do 4 more, and then the final one, and then 4 more.
The final.
We need fucking Stingy Jack versus Jimmy Van Brunt, bro.
Man,
that's what needs. It could be your Freddy versus Jason right there. That's as good as I'm getting it with a ballpoint pen on this pumpkin, man.
Was the plan in this one to have your wife play a role, or did somebody not show up?
His wife is. Oh
yeah,
no,
that's usually how it goes. It's like, oh, this person can't do it. Hey, can you jump in? That's how
she did great.
Yeah, I mean, she's not an actor, but what we needed for the film, she worked great for that style. The style of these like shot on video garbage fests.
Dude, your performance in there is absolutely adorable too, where you're like hitting on your wife in the context of the movie in like the most creepy way possible. It's so wholesome, dude, in a very Chris Seaver kind of a way.
Johnny Douchebag is a
it's a fucking legend, is what he is.
Recurring character. He's in a lot of the early LVP stuff.
Oh, I love it, dude.
And I hadn't done Johnny Douchebag in years. And it was just like, hey, I'll write this weird like caretaker dude, and it'll just be Johnny.
What's the first one he shows up in?
Heather and Pugly Drop a Deuce.
And then what is that? Jacques DeQueef, that's the other dude in the.
Jacques DeQueef is another character. Yeah. Jacques DeQueef was
sort of similar because it's Chris doing like an insane fucking rando, but there's variations on them that make them different. And also Jacques has a sweet wig.
Jacques was a name that I used in early LVP, like in the early 90s, 91, 92, 93. I used Jacques,
isn't it?
What?
Isn't it Nom de Guerre?
I used it as like he would shoot or edit the films. Right. That was Jacques DeQueef. And then back then I shot this funny school project about Jacques DeQueef, where he was a blind cinematographer.
And where is that, my friend?
Beats the fucking me.
We need that.
And so this legend just kept growing, within our group of this Jacques DeQueef guy. And, we didn't finally meet. I didn't even know other than that thing I did, in the early 90s for school, I didn't know what Jacques Dequeef looked like. And that's neither here nor there because Jacques Dequeef is not in Death of Lantern 2, but
old Johnny D sure as hell is. And man, is
comes
that
back.
the best. Oh my God, dude. Well, we'll save that. Before we jump into that real quick, though, we did skip over our favorite scenes for Death of Lantern 1. We're going to take it off with you, Brandon, since this was your first time watching it. You got a favorite little scene, and then what's your favorite, main scene?
Well, my favorite my favorite little scene is just the death by candle. I like that. Matter of fact, if as I said before, if the lit candle was his main weapon throughout the entire series, I would be perfectly happy with that. And that final scene at the party with the end of Jack would probably be my favorite, full on.
About you, Cody?
Actually, I'm glad I got the shot. We didn't talk about this. I think my favorite stuff was Casey in the bowling alley, and then when we get to their death scene.
Fuck yeah!
Where he's got
showing the sweet dance moves. I love it.
Yeah,
I got this one from Theo Huxtable. So is that just combined your whole favorite?
Yeah, that's probably a toss up. The candlestick kill, and then the girl that Casey was talking to getting decapitated while performing was probably my favorite part of the movie.
I sent that to several group chats earlier, actually. I was watching the movie. Jamie plays a couple of characters in this movie, actually. She plays that girl, and then she plays Vanity is the name of her character in this one. And she is fun. She's the fun, high school snob chick.
Yeah, Jamie's great. Jamie's awesome. And she
is great.
And everything.
Wasn't it her house you guys stayed at to shoot the first one?
Yeah.
And several other things till she moved or some shit.
Yeah. Jamie's kick ass in everything she does for us. She was awesome.
Super, super sweet lady. Several of these people that we've talked about tonight do also have Making a Crapster Piece episodes with Chris over on his channel at Crap from the 80s. So make sure that you guys pop over there to check those out. If I had to say favorite little scene, every single scene with Lance and Patrick.
Lucas and Patrick,
excuse me, is top tier. But one of my favorites is where they're at the bowling alley and Patrick goes to roll and he's like, Lucas, look at this. And he rolls and it misses. And then he's like, he wanted that high five so bad, and it's just so fucking wholesome, man. It warms my heart every time. And then after that, where Lucas snakes Adrian on her frame is just so classic. So those are my favorite little bits, but major scene, I'm a big fan of that scene where Adrian gets killed, actually. And they're busy arguing over, whether they should watch Reanimator. And they're too distracted to fucking notice that the whole reason they're there is actually happening. And then, Lucas announcing it to him is classic. It's got that feeling that happens in a lot of stuff, almost a Monster Squad type of a thing, So just perfect stuff, in my opinion. Death of Lantern, the first one, will always be in my Halloween rotation. This is my second year watching it during the month of October, and hopefully there's many, many more in store. And I feel like the second one is one of those things where they're both so easy to watch that just why wouldn't you watch it back to back? And we have them on one Blu-ray, so it's just going to be a yearly double feature going forward. So basically the second one, as Chris alluded to, starts out with Phoebe running this rehab facility for kids that are traumatized by Halloween, but more specifically Stingy Jack. So she runs them through, I guess, I don't know what you call that kind of therapy. We actually have a therapist in our midst right here. Brandon, what is that, exposure therapy or whatever Phoebe's trying to run at that house in the second one?
When I look at the start of the second one, I keep thinking of Friday the 13th part 5. Yeah. And as a therapist, I've never really thought about, though I've run groups in the past, I've never actually tried to run a survivor group in that manner. um, Theoretically, exposure therapy works, but every time I've seen it in use, it actually tends to make people's fears worse. So, but then again, I've also found that almost every use of mental health in film is extremely inaccurate, and most of those mental health professionals should be fired.
Right. I think it's a novel approach to it. I mean, I've heard sort of the same things, even not being a professional, that exposure therapy rarely works if it's something beyond like basic phobias, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
If it's a supernatural fucking pumpkin man that's killing people, I don't think a Halloween haunted house is going to cure them of that, you know.
it's the
but if it's like a fear of spiders or something, maybe petting a tarantula.
I mean, it's that concept of extinction. You got something like you build up some sort of reaction. You try to then expose them to something again and again with the idea that nothing bad is going to happen, and then it's supposed to cause a reduction of the initial reaction to that fear. But that's a. But again, if someone's truly phobic, you're just going to end up increasing that person's trauma, and they'll end up more afraid of Jack than they did before.
There you go. That seems accurate, man. I think in this one, the introduction of what's her name again? What's the name of the witch lady that resurrects him in this one? Morlix is her last name, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's Morlix. Volma Morlix.
Volma, yeah. Isn't Girth? That's also something Death of Lantern birthed for you guys, was the Girth Morlix thing, which we didn't touch on, but that was a random performer. You know, so the necromancer lady being related to that, and then the fact that they resurrected Lance and he gives Girth Morlix as like his alias later in the film is pretty. Or, I mean, Lucas, excuse me, is pretty great. I don't know. What do you guys think of the whole witch angle? Because we didn't really, like Chris said, it doesn't really matter how he comes back in the first one, but in the second one, it bears some explaining. Do you think, you know, little witchcraft, little necromancy, the dark arts is a worthwhile explanation for it in this outing?
Wasn't this kind of the similar? Maybe it's been a bit. Wasn't this kind of similar to what happened with Another Evil Night? Where it had like I don't remember the character that Josh played, where he resurrected. God, why can't I remember his name right now? Maybe I'm totally off on this. I don't know. But it seemed like there was some. This one wasn't really I guess this was a witch. The other one was kind of like a bullied kid. So maybe I'm way off on that. That doesn't seem like it's connecting as soon as I start saying it. So disregard that.
What are you talking about? In the remake, it's Josh as Griselda.
Maybe that was
who does
pretty
it.
Special.
Who brings
maybe that was it.
Yeah, but Evil Knight's an entirely sort of separate thing. That's more of Chris remaking a SOV movie from the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And it's very much more along the lines of like I always think of Evil Knight as like Halloween meets Carrie. That's kind of where it falls for me. I don't know. I like the idea of there being like a proper supernatural element resurrecting Jack from the grave in this one. It gives it that, like, you know, intensified stakes, intensified everything that a sequel needs. You know, of course there's a witch that's just mad that kids suck, so she's gonna resurrect Stingy Jack to fuck him up once again.
The witch. This is my favorite character in the second movie.
The witch.
Dude, she did a good job.
Jamie was great. Yeah, Jamie was great. Yeah, the second one, you know, I don't know why I just said fuck it as far as the feel of those types of movies, and I just said we're just gonna make a outright goofy ass. Like, I mean, the second one is so goofy. It's deliberately, I wrote it like as if it was like a 7-year-old writing a horror movie. I mean, we just wrote the dumbest shit, and I wanted it to be goofy and just end with that dumbass dance, that video, and
Oh, dude, it
It's
is
the best part of the
most
whole
epic
movie.
thing.
Best part of the
Which
whole
we will
movie.
get intimately familiar
the
with.
second one is just dumb. It is just dumb, and it was supposed to, and we just had a ball laughing.
We saw more of Chris than we ever hoped to in that goddamn music video, dude. That never fails to get a reaction out of people. No, there it is.
That wasn't a stunt sack.
I
No.
don't think so, man. I've seen him cup it as the squealing transient, and it seems proportionate. Yeah. Glorious stupidity, man. It is the best. I mean, I just want to talk about the running scene, but we'll get there. So we're pretty much quickly after that, we're introduced to this whole like dream sequence with Meredith or Phoebe, where she's like in the graveyard and she's going to like say this curse upon Jack to make him like not able to come back, right?
Yeah.
Favorite scene is where you zoom in on her ass and then you cut to her next and there's like a fart sound. That's like the best, dude. And then it turns out to all be a dream, and she's running this, sort of halfway house for wayward kids that have been, traumatized by Stingy Jack and Halloween. We're pretty quickly introduced to, the characters that are going to be the main characters of this movie. God damn it. I had them right here in my notes too. I forget. Well, Chris can fill us in here. You guys, there's the kid with the poofy hair, the blonde girl with the glasses, and all that good stuff.
I remember their real
What do you
names.
guys think of that? I feel like I do too, maybe, but I can't remember their character names.
Torin, his real name is
I'll check it for
Torin.
you.
I can't remember who he plays. The girl, that's Lauren. She's in a bunch of my other movies. Again, I can't remember who she's playing.
Well, Torin was the guy pretending to be traumatized, and he was like a
I just
paranormal
mean
guy or journalist or
like,
something.
their names. I don't know their names in the movie. I don't remember that at all.
Right.
But I know the people.
Was that his first movie with you?
Yeah, that's a kid. He was this, I mean, he still is. He's this, filmmaker from Canada, very young. And I gotta be honest, I cannot remember how Torin and I got hooked up. I really can't remember, but it was just one of those like, hey, I'm writing Death of Lantern 2. Do you want to come down and be in it? From Canada, and his mom drove him from Canada to Rochester and dropped him off for a
You
weekend.
had to show him you had to give him his first passion flaky. Isn't that a Canadian thing?
Yeah, he knew of them, but had never like eaten them.
See, I never did get around to ordering that box of them. I should have. I had them on the way, but I ended up having to cancel the order because of some stuff. But I'm Canadian as well, man. But they don't have those out in Western Canada that I'm aware of. That's like totally an East Coast or Northeastern thing. But they look amazing. And they sound amazing.
they're
I
delicious.
mentioned them enough. And me and he actually talked about them at a decent amount of length one time. I think a lot about the passion flakies, so just to keep forgetting to get on there and order them, but that's one of my favorite special features that's ever been on one of your guys' discs. I think it's you and Clint, and then Clint shows how to properly eat the passion flaky, and it's like a how-to to enjoy this delicious.
I got everybody hooked on that.
It's beautiful. Also, it's a Texas hot. That's something I'd like to experience that you guys talk about frequently.
Fucking delicious.
Someday, if eventually I have cause to come out that way for a convention, which hopefully things will work out that way in the next few years, I'll be able to pop in there to Wellsville or wherever and enjoy some of that, because we don't have that shit out here. So what do you guys think of our other characters? Brandon, Cody, what do you think of these kids? I tried to find them on IMDb. There's no listings for Jack or Death of Lantern 2.
I mean, I think you got your cast of characters. You got your skeptic, you got your nerdy character. Matter of fact, those are the only two that I really remember out of the kids. I'm sure there were more.
Those are the only two.
Yeah,
it's just really those
I
two.
feel like
and
there
then
should be more.
Wife.
Remember?
We should have been, but that's all we had.
So
and they work. I wish I could remember the blonde girl with the glasses name, because she's so fucking funny in that role, dude. And the voice that she's doing reminds me so much of like an Adult Swim character or something.
Yeah,
she Lauren that they sacrificed in the first one.
What's that?
She's like her, but better.
She reminds me of the blonde that they sacrificed in the first one.
Not the same person. Luckily, that person was gone from my life. So,
I feel like I've heard you guys mention her unfavorably and stuff. I don't want to be the one to bring it up, but you've forgotten her name on several occasions, so we're not in bad company here where that's concerned.
But Lauren was great. Lauren's been in a bunch of my stuff, and I can't remember the character she plays in this, but she did it great. And I've written that character again, but Lauren ended up moving to Florida, and so I don't see her often.
Sort of Ace Frehley inspired, I guess. I'm just sort of, the pen didn't work out, so I'm freehanding it at this point. But yeah, she's good, man. I mean, she's, I don't feel like she's not like in a ton of your stuff, but she's in enough of it to be memorable. For sure.
Yeah, she's in Bloodfart Lake Part 2. She's in PIA.
As the psychic, the medium. That's where I was trying to think of what the main thing I remembered her from in this, but she's so different in that one from this character, but a similar voice, like that lazy sort of like space cadet thing that she's got going on. But PIA, man, that movie is a masterstroke. We'll definitely be bringing you on about that at some point. If you're down.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. That was a great one.
It really was. I think honestly, if like Wellsville Nights wasn't what you guys came up with for a show, PIA is probably the best concept you already had in the burner for like something that could be a show on Tubi or something like that.
It was gonna be a show.
It feels like it should have been, and I would have watched many, many seasons of that. Have you guys? Well, Brandon hasn't, but you've seen PIA, right, Cody?
I don't think so.
Oh, bro, we got to cut you in on that. I'll order a copy for you from SRS next time they're in stock.
Well, that one's from
Camp. Yeah,
Camp.
Excuse me. Yeah. Real cheap too, and Camp keeps their stuff in stock because I think they burn it on demand. So. Yeah. So pretty quickly, in short order, actually, we're kind of introduced to you as Johnny Douchebag, and then the fact that this fucking Canadian fella isn't actually a patient. He's infiltrated the.
Yeah, to try to get the straight dope about Stingy Jack.
What were your guys' thoughts on this turn of events? I don't know. The kid seemed a little sketchy to me just by the way he was wearing his beanie, but I'm not one to judge just a book by its cover. But then he quickly revealed himself to be indeed sketchy. So was that surprising to any of you guys?
Well, it surprised me that he decided to just reveal it straight up to the only other person that was with him for the thing. But,
yeah.
I guess
random garbage mouth patient that seems like she would probably blurt it out to the next person in the room. It's not a smart choice, I don't know. What do you guys think of? Was it you or Clint that did the meep when the car shows up?
Both of us.
Were you
I
guys
don't.
just throwing random shit out there too, like random variations on it, and it kept them laughing forever? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like both Meredith and your wife were having a hard time with that one, and I imagine every time I hear it, and you can see it on Meredith's face that she barely just keeps it together for the. Like, there's that part of her that for a moment that flashes underneath where she's like, I'm about to lose it.
Yeah. That one, I mean, like, we had great times making each of those movies for different reasons. The first Death on Lantern, it just felt, for me personally, it just felt like I was back in the late 80s, early 90s making shot on video shit with my friends. It was just so nostalgic and fun, and we just had a great time, and it just went so easy. And then with the second one, it was just all laughs. The second one, we were just nonstop because of how stupid it was. We just were crying laughing most of the time. So
I think you say on one of the supplemental segments that, like, you're basically, the idea was to make it like the over the top goofy sequel that so often are the better sequels, a Return of the Living Dead 2 notwithstanding. Lots of times those second movies tend to take a little bit more of a humorous approach to it, and those, for me, maybe it's because we all have a synergy of taste here to a certain extent, but I think a lot of us enjoy those kind of sequels where it's like, all right, well, you hit us with the heavy one in the first one, so now we're just having fun with the idea of this and seeing where it can go, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I can imagine the first one was very fulfilling for you also because it was the gelling of the idea that was Warlock,
100%.
Didn't quite go through with DBQ, but with Death of Lantern, you guys had basically achieved what you wanted to with it. And then, with Death of Lantern 2, because you achieved that with the first one, you afforded yourselves the ability to have a little bit more fun with the next installment.
And again, between those two movies, we shot, Happy Holidays, Dingleberries, Sex Squatch, PIA, and Phantom of the Grindhouse. So much material in 2 years. At that point, 2 was like, I'm making part 2 just the, nonsensical, stupid, silly, over the top sequel of an 80s, property. That's what it was for sure. Like you said, it was totally meant to be like, well, this is the Evil Dead 2 of the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah.
Just as far as buffoonery goes,
That's the best way to put it for sure. And it does have that vibe. I mean, the jokes are very much more on the face of it. I think in the first one, you did a great job of being able to stifle the part of you that wants to make those Seaver jokes, like every couple of minutes. But there is still plenty of them in there. I mean, it's
meant
just
to
they're
be
done subtly.
Like a very, all those people in those shot on video movies are terrible. They're playing it so straight, so serious, and that's where the comedy was coming from. It was just how serious and how bad it was. So, whereas the second one is just blatant, like where Chris is writing the dumbest shit, saying, we're going to be saying and doing the dumbest shit.
Fake dentures and teeth or tongues flopping out, and it's the best shit in the world. I love every moment of it.
I mean, Lucas's heart is an apple instead.
That is the funniest shit ever to me.
And it was working just fine until I got ripped out.
Yeah.
Well, I love his input on the commentary or the behind this, or I guess it's your guys' little recap or whatever you did of it, looking back on it. But he talks about how he probably would have died shortly after anyways, because it was just an apple. Like I like how he talks about how the doctors were able to restore his meaty organ. There's just so many good things from Lucas in this movie, not least of which is the infamous Poussey scene. Puzzay, you know. Talk about that well-trimmed shrubbery.
Mhm.
But
Which
man,
was
I mean,
rough.
I love the direction you took with him in this, and I feel like I appreciate it a little more every time because it is very much that he was like resurrected by these people or something. I mean, does it ever explain in the movie if he was resurrected by the witch also? Because he
No,
gives Gerf
it was
Morlix as his
it was
alias.
necromancers. That's it. It has nothing to do with her at all.
See, but the tying it into the dark arts or whatever is just it. I don't know. Like in my own fan rationale, it's like, oh, that's why he says his name is Gerf Morlix, and she says her name is like Volma Morlix or whatever.
No
I mean,
connection.
accidental coincidence, but fun fan theory kind of a thing, you know.
See, I had thought that he was going to be a double agent the whole time and turn on them because Jack had used the bodies of other people he killed in the previous film. So I thought, oh well, he's just now Jack's back. He's using this one to get them under a false sense of security.
Sorry about that. I keep forgetting to mute my mic each time I start this back up. I'm getting into the finer points of this boy. So, Brandon, if you and Cody want to kind of, lead this forward for a little while, I'll ask questions as they occur. But I've said about carving this fucking jack-o'-lantern for this episode. I'd like to finish it. So I think
that is a cool concept.
That they will come. Maybe Stingy Jack will show up tonight and teach me the finer points of something.
Yeah. Between this one, it was kind of weird because I watched it not long after I watched the new Wayans movie, which was his first attempt at a children's film, which I thought was entertaining, but also had to do with a pumpkin that was turnip that was being used to come back and bring some evil back to life, but not quite in the same way as Stingy Jack. So. But a similar story,
Is that the origins of the comments I've been seeing lately where people are like, I remember the old days of Halloween where we just left a turnip on the porch and forgot about it. Is that to do with that movie? Or is that a real thing people used to do before pumpkins?
That's real lore.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was a pumpkin, it was a turnip.
Yep.
Fucking turnips. Well, I guess you have to use them for something.
Well, they're huge. You can get some huge turnips if you grow them right. So they look and I did enjoy the second film being more of a comedic take on it. I half expected Jack to be a part of the music video at the end, just coming back for it.
He's in there. He's in there. He doesn't dance or anything, but
I expect him to dance with all the rest. That's fine.
He unfortunately gets the nuts on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, dude, that's one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen. The first time I watched that, I was like, holy shit.
It could have ended that way,
like next level on our asses right here.
It could have ended in that way because I've seen plenty of those things, like the power of 80s music converted Jack, and he's not one of them.
That's also a cool idea, actually, of it, is Jack being like like them being a little Scooby-Doo Avengers squad of kids that goes around solving these mysteries, and sometimes these people that they've thwarted in the past come back in, sort of like a Marvel Comics thing, where maybe Jack isn't always a bad guy, I mean, in my fan brain, I feel like that could work. In practice, maybe not. I don't know. It's up to Chris, but it could be done.
I mean, one of the earliest.
We have a mouth, folks.
Something like that.
It's coming together, guys. You missed it, Chris, but you'll see the final product. It's not going to be great. So take us forward, boys. What do you got, Cody? You guys remember what happens next in the film?
I don't know where we're at on it. Next thing I want
introduction of characters, and then into the kid confessing to being, a fucking turncoat, a double agent. He's there to expose this whole thing as a fraud. And then obviously we had Lucas introduce himself from Beyond the Grave.
Yeah, I mean, I will say he showed up kind of as a mysterious character, so I could have definitely seen him being part of the problem, not so much the solution in this one. How he would just popped in and then had to go, which I like that. I'm glad he was back. I enjoyed more how he took the glasses on and off to the extreme in the second one, which was cool because his buddy wasn't there to do high fives, so you got to stick with your other shtick. I think I like this one better than the first one. I do like how having them on a double feature, they work well together, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the more straight up, 80s slasher movie, and then you get the goofy sequel where they took a chance, and if the chance didn't work, they could always go back to the realisticness of the first one. I mean, I'm cutting ahead, but I mean, my favorite part was the music video at the end. I think you'd be remiss not to make a collection of just those stuff onto one disc, because I think that's like do your MTV best of.
We, I made it for the group. Last year was the 30th anniversary of me making movies, and we all got together and. Zach showed us the first cut of the documentary, but I'll also put together sort of a history of LVP and everybody who has been making these movies with me. I put together like a little 30-minute thing that I showed everybody before the documentary was shown. And in that clip show, I put every dance number that we've ever done in a Chris Seaver movie. I edited them all together, and so they're on that disc. Unfortunately, you guys won't see that, but it was gifted to everybody in the group. So yes, there is something out there that has all of the dance numbers edited together.
From what I've seen over the couple of years I've been watching, there's some glorious ones.
We have quite a few.
Yeah, what's the other one that you guys, wasn't it one of the blood farts that Meredith had to really stick it to you, like we have to do the dance thing or whatever?
That was actually for Death of Lantern 2.
Maybe it was the other one that you just did because you were hyped on it, and this one you were like, we'd done it before, maybe. I feel like I remember you mentioning that once.
I don't know. I was ready to just be like, fuck it, we don't need it for this. And
dude, you guys made the right decision.
It is stink. She was just like, she was not happy.
Every time I see that shit hit that VHS tape, I know that there's just solid gold coming after it. Much more solid than that turd. And man, your dance moves are fucking on point through that whole thing. Hopefully we get Brandon back at some point. Who knows if that he doesn't usually have technical difficulties, so it's entirely possible he had to leave. I haven't checked yeah, he said emergency just came up, had to drop out. Send my thanks to Chris for his time. So thank you, Chris. Septim was definitely not expecting that, I think. So yeah, definitely thank you from all of us, man, for getting on here with us for this. This is pretty special stuff.
Sure. I am gonna have to leave soon though, because we're the wife is waiting for me to be done for us to eat.
Oh yeah, we're about hitting that 2-hour point anyways, where we're gonna be wrapping it up. But
okay.
I guess we'll just hit highlights for Death Lantern 2. I mean, that whole your entire death scene is one of the best things I've ever seen you guys do. You running and then it's not how I wanted to die. I thought it would be a giantess, especially how you lick your lips right before you fucking go into that. There's just so much brilliance in that entire fucking sequence, dude.
Yeah. And I left, a part of the idea of Warlock was that the editing is so bad that mistakes get left in the movie and things like that, and so that's why, like, when I scream, the teeth fall out, and I left it.
I love it, dude. Every bit of that. And then when you're backing up, you're like, no, not the face. I fucking die every time I watch it. And there's very few scenes in movies that get the same level of laughs out of me every time I watch them. And your movies, when they hit that peak like that at those moments, or some of the few. My kid's even right here shaking her head, like, yeah. Those are pretty much funny every single time.
They're a bit interesting sometimes.
His movies are interesting for sure.
Very interesting. I would not recommend to show it in any class except sex ed.
That's true. She's unfortunately seen some of those racier scenes. I didn't know to prepare for them in some of those films. But nah, she's cool. Yeah, man. I mean, it's one of the funniest scenes I think you've ever shot is that whole sequence of you running. The running part, for some reason, gets me almost as much as any of the other stuff, too. Just the way you guys shot the running, and you're running with those big exaggerated strides. It's the fucking best thing in the world, dude.
It was just one little area. And I just kept going back and running the same area.
Yeah, you can tell you're trying real hard to make it look like you're covering some distance. It works, man, in a very Looney Tunes kind of a way. I love it, man. I don't know. You got any other highlights in there for the second one, Cody?
I mean, you hit the hammer on the head. Those are my favorite two scenes also. So just put an extra stamp on it for me that those are definitely my favorite parts.
Yeah, I mean, the second one I'm a little bit more hesitant to kind of just break down the entire thing anyways, because it gives people less reason to jump into them and watch them. The first one, it's very straightforward. This one's got a little bit more creative nuance to it, I guess you could say. It's something you kind of want to experience yourself. In terms of the kills, also Chris's is the best. The weed whacker to the face. I mean,
I think so.
Yeah.
If
ever there was a time for you to bust out a death metal track for a kill scene, I feel like you've done it once or twice, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Is that the only one?
No, there's other kills in some of the movies where we put on some metal during some death.
Yeah, I feel like metal, but I don't know if this is the first one that's like straight up like brutal death metal, which is a lot more in my wheelhouse, which ironically enough, when I first ever talked to Chris on David Streggy's channel, I kind of clowned on people that use death metal over kill scenes, but I feel like with Chris, it's funny when he does it,
Well, I definitely don't listen to it.
yeah, exactly, because he's not a fan of that shit. So it's like he's doing it just because it's brutal, like the weed whacker kill warranted some death metal, and isn't there behind the scenes of him like fucking totally jacked because he's got all the blood in his eyes and his nose and shit like that? Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I remember seeing that. I didn't watch the special features on part 2 this time because I was a bit crunched for time.
Yeah, it was the end, where we just tacked on the making of. And because they were just shooting the blood, it was going up into my nose. I was like snotting it out, snotting blood rockets. But as long as and I say it's like, did it look good? As long as it looks good, I don't care,
Right. Not so much you have to do a ranking, but I would think from talking to you, I mean, I know how you don't particularly like all of your movies, but you've made a lot, so they're not all going to be your favorites. But I mean, I would say that I would think you hold these in pretty higher regard. Would you?
I really like the first one. Just because I think it like he said before, it really did sort of set the tone for Warlock Home Video and what I wanted to accomplish with it. I really like. I like the second one as well, but I think the first one I can see why people would put it into their Halloween rotation. I get it. Because if I, well, I was that kid growing up renting movies like this and just being like, oh, this is great, and this is going to be added to my rotation, and this is that classic. This is, it has that feel and everything, and I think we all, nailed it with that one. And the second one is just pure stupid fun. The second one is like, for us, like, we're the only people that really like Stoinky Beach. The people that made it, because it's so stupid, and we just constantly laugh at them. We watch it every single summer.
Yeah, I think it's going to become a summer staple for me as well. Stoinky Beach is so fun. And my buddy Manolo, who weirdly doesn't like much of this stuff, but when I showed him Stoinky Beach, he just for some reason thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
Well, I mean, it's pure dumb
ridiculous fucking tomfoolery, of the filthiest kind, and I love every moment of it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Blood Fart Lake, the first one. I love Sex Squatch. I love the Weirdsies. I like Teen Ape Goes to Camp. I like Wet Heat.
Yeah, baby.
I like Film Crew. Evil Night. I like Evil Night.
It's not perfect, but it's also not bad.
Yeah. So
no, I'm talking about My Pumpkin, bro.
Oh. Whoa.
Yeah. The eyes are a bit lopsided. Might have to fix that, but yeah, there we go. Mission accomplished, boys.
Here we go.
Is it safe to say The Weirdsies is still probably your favorite movie that you've made? Because that tends to be the way that I recommend it to people. Like, start with these, but really at some point fit The Weirdsies in there as soon as you can, because that's like his most close to his heartfelt sort of actual. That's. I feel like that's a Chris movie. I don't feel like it's a Seaver movie in the same way. It's got the Seaver touches in there, but I feel like that. Does that make any sense? Like, that one's a little more special, kind of a.
It was. I mean, I marinated that one for a little while. A lot like Wellsville Nights.
What do you think? Sorry, I'm asking. there was other bystanders watching me carve this. Yeah. All right. Going on the porch.
But yeah, I would still say that's my favorite.
Least favorite. Egg salad.
Least favorite? Oh my God. Give me all your hands, because I'm going to be counting.
There's so many.
Lots of movies I do not like.
Most of which we would disagree upon, but that's the fun part of this.
I really hate Quest for the Egg Salad. I hate. I don't like Taint Light.
I love both of those so much.
Jeez, yeah, there's a lot I don't like.
Taint Light for sure has your most epic fight sequence, I think, next to, what is it, Wet Heat? No, not Wet Heat. It's the one where Heather plays the Terminator. Is that Wet Heat?
Wet Heat, yeah, that's Wet Heat.
Yeah, I think those are my two favorite fight sequences. Those and Malva 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Malva's all right. It's not my favorite. Do I not like I don't like those like rednecky shit flicks we did that we didn't really want to do for SRS. Like,
I gotta admit, neither do I, bud, but there are certain lines that you guys have in there that are like, okay, Chris managed to at least put something funny in these on occasion. But there was a weird obsession with like rednecks for a while when it came to this this low budget shit, and I just
Well,
don't
that's
get it.
all you
Even
want.
Redneck Zombies, I've kind of outgrown, I think, over the years. I don't find it as funny as I used to.
He just kept wanting that type of shit, and I was just, and it shows. It
As
shows.
funny as it is to see Meredith in a mullet wig, it's just not. It's not my jam. Yeah.
Nah, we did not have a good time making those flicks. So
All right. Well, Cody, if you have anything you want to close out with here with Chris before we let him go, feel free to do so. We've got some closing statements before we end the episode, but I think we kept this real tight, especially considering having you on here at 2 hours. We'd love to have you back for more in the future, Chris. I think
all you gotta do is ask, man. If I can
I
make it,
think
I'll
we
make
had fun, man. I think that this was a good time.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll be carving pumpkins in future episodes. That was kind of more trouble than it was maybe worth, and we don't have the right lighting to properly display the little bastard, but we did it, And these pumpkin ales are pretty good. I know that Chris doesn't drink, but you do, Cody. If you get a chance to try that, Voodoo Ranger Atomic Pumpkin, it's not as spicy as it claims to be with the habaneros, but I enjoyed it. So fire away. I'll be right back momentarily, and we'll close this out, bud.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it started off, I think my first one was Filthy McNasty. It was on the bonus movie of, was it Dead and Rotting?
Yeah, for Full Moon. Yeah.
I rented that. I don't know if they had any in New York. I was working at Hastings at the time. It was
not in my neck of the woods. They
books,
don't have
music, and video store.
Yeah.
But anyway, it kind of fell off for a bit, and then I got back into watching your stuff when The Dirty Dozen came out. I pre-ordered that, and then watching that stuff and all the behind the scenes, whatnot, and then just buying stuff off of you. I mean, I don't think that there's anything you've done that I definitely hated for sure. Because I mean, if anything, I'd like to think you at least enjoyed doing it, and hopefully when you did it, and at least if nothing else, I mean, for the most part, you're making movies with your friends and your buddies. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to fault anything for that. And I don't know what else Mo's going to hop on, but I appreciate that you make, like what I said before, you're doing maybe even if it's a shorter movie, you're still stacking it. And with these kind of movies, I think I enjoy almost the commentary and behind the scenes as much of, if not more so sometimes, than the actual movies, just because you get all that extra insight and you get really because you guys are making the movies yourself. So you guys know firsthand how all this stuff happens. So it's interesting to hear that stuff.
Oh, dude, with especially Death of Lantern 1, the in-character, behind-the-scenes stuff is brilliant. You really get a palpable feeling that we're not the only ones who were trying to forget that girl's name. It's good stuff. I've never encountered anything like it, I don't think, where they went the lengths to shoot like in-character, behind-the-scenes footage to accompany the movie. Probably the best acting in Death of Lantern is in that in-character footage.
Stop it.
So that's all I would have to add to that. But dude, I'm just super stoked that you've been willing to give us the time that you've given us, Chris. You don't have to come hang out with us idiots, but this has been magical, I feel like.
Good. It worked out. Yeah.
I'm certainly glad that I didn't come in costume like I was planning on, because carving that pumpkin was annoying enough, like also trying to have a conversation at the same time. Not something I'd recommend. My hands feel super greasy. My mouse is definitely going to need a good wash down. But it was worth it, man. I feel like, though, in the spirit of this, I should have probably carved a dick in it or something. Or like a visage of Henry Lee Summers or something. But we work with what we've got, as Chris has taught us. So thanks, man. We're going to let you get off there to your wife and the dinner. Tell her we very much appreciate her participation in Death Lantern 2. She had some good scenes in there as well, especially talking about you getting at her, was it her tender meat curtains? I think. So, cheers. Thanks for everything you do, man. Thanks for the time that you've given us. We look forward to having you back here in the future.
I'll totally do it. Thank you, guys.
Any closing words for the people before you go?
Oh, thanks. like, if you haven't checked any of this shit out, give it a shot. You might get a kick out of it. It's not going to change the world, but it might put a smile on your face. Might give you a chuckle. And that's all I make them for, is just for people to have a good time and laugh.
Let's bring that smile to the people's faces, man. Chris's filmography is very varied. Okay, he makes a lot of different movies with the same sensibilities. He doesn't make a lot of the same movies with just random sensibilities. It's very much Chris every time you watch his movies. Yeah. And there's a little something for everyone. You don't like Filthy McNasty, you might like Geek War. You don't like Blood Fart Lake, you're probably gonna like Evil Night. I mean, that's just the way that it seems to go in my experience with exposing people to this shit. And we're gonna continue to do our best to spread that disease, baby. So awesome. Thank you very much again for coming on, man. What are you guys having for dinner? Update us.
We don't know. We're gonna order, I think, at this point.
You have a hankering for something in particular, my boy?
Man, I'm ready for whatever the fuck. I want some barbecue. I want some pizza. I'll eat anything.
I've been eating some fucking pho lately, man. That noodle soup it rejuvenates the soul, and I think it's hitting that cold time of year. So I've been thinking about that a lot, like the last 2 weeks, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully you get everything your heart desires, though, Chris. Good barbecue feast for all your efforts. Thanks again, man.
All right.
Get you out of here so we can close this up. Oh, shit. We got a faux bowl right here. Just got one handed to me, so it looks like I don't got to go far.
All right, guys. You guys have a delicious evening.
You too, sir.
I will talk to you guys
very soon.
All right. Bye.
So, Cody, do you think that went well?
We still live?
Of course we are.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it won't change what I say, but yeah, I think it went good. I think it was fine. I think we maybe should try to stick to maybe a hard 2 hours when we have a guest, just so we're not eating up too much. I mean, we got pretty close to it anyway, and we were talking about.
That's kind of why I kicked him out. Like, Chris would have stayed here for another hour with us, even though he had to go and eat. That's just the kind of guy that he is, So, I feel like we did real good with that, actually. Honestly, if we'd gotten Chris in here right from the beginning, probably would have been 2 hours even. And that's I fully agree with you. That's unless they're like a Joe and they say like, nah, fuck it, man, let's just keep going. I think 2 hours should be the goal. Obviously, most of our interviews probably aren't going to be us like sort of interviewing the dude as we discuss the movies. That was a bit of a hybrid that I wasn't necessarily prepared for, and I'm surprised considering all the elements involved that it went as well as it did. I really thought me carving that pumpkin was going to fuck a lot of the things up, but I think it added a festive spirit to it, man. How many podcasts have you watched where the dude interviews a guy about a killer pumpkin movie and carves a pumpkin at the same time? I'm also real surprised at how easy these little pie pumpkins are to carve. And they've got like a thicker wall to them, it feels like, if you see there. Yeah. So I might even start just sticking to these in the future, because if I had better instruments, I could have done quite a thing on this guy. For basically freehanding it and having to give up part of the way through this side was like what I did with the ballpoint pen before it just stopped working. So this side I had to freehand, but if I could have perfectly copied this side on this side, I think it would be a damn near perfect jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah. You did good, kid.
I think we got some cool insights from Chris there that we didn't necessarily get in some of the supplemental material. We touched on some of the same stuff, but we also, weren't afraid to probe in other directions. Chris wasn't afraid to volunteer that material, obviously. As soon as he said that the guys from X Strike Studios were shitheads, I knew that we were on to an honest interview. Yeah. And that's out of character for Chris. They had to have been real dicks to the guy for him to say that publicly like that, because as well as I that usually he'd skirt around that if it wasn't worth mentioning. Which, you know, they were making video game movies in this sphere back in the day, so they definitely seem like more of the bro crowd, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can understand them not gelling with Chris, because we're all nerds, you know. I don't know how I was never made fun of in high school, but I feel like if we grew up in the 80s, we would have been, you know. We're definitely not the kids that are, we're not the jock kids, you know.
Right.
So I have a hard time mixing in with that kind of element as well. And I think I can relate to him a little bit with that, even without knowing anything personal about the dudes. Just watching the movies, it's very, very much more of a bro crowd than what Chris or any of us would ever be dealing with. I think in terms of our, I don't even know if we'd call that an interview. That was really just like a hangout. It was a simultaneous review / Q&A.
Yeah, we kind of, I don't know if that was like what you were saying, if it was your plan or not. We kind of also got to, maybe it was because since these are shorter movies, we kind of also just kind of hit all over the place with a lot of his stuff, which I think makes it seem more unstructured, which I think I'd rather have, because then it's just you're chatting with, you know, just a
hanging with
dude.
Chris,
Yeah. Instead
The
of just
main
going
topic
down here.
just happened to be the Death Lantern movies, but we did touch on some other stuff.
Yeah, which I like that. Then it's not just the straight and narrow, like you're going down your list of questions and you can't deviate from it at all, which you're definitely going to get other stuff if there's, you know, 3 of us asking questions as well.
See, if we sat down to do okay, I know that one night that I was all wasted, I sent you the fucking list of questions. And I still think that those first few questions are like a good baseline questions, right? Like those are things that every interview should hit. If you're doing a proper formal, like we're just interviewing you type of a thing. Obviously that wouldn't have fit tonight with Chris. But in the future, I think those are good, but I don't want us to stick to like a script for interviews. I think that would make the interviews lame. I think that it would make them real stale and kind of samey after a while, because you're just getting the same questions asked to everyone. And I don't ever want us to be the show that does that, you know. I do like the basic, like first 4 questions on that list that I sent you, or 4 or 5, whatever, like the origin questions, I think are ones that you kind of got to get out of the way because everyone wants to hear that shit. But then after that, I think it's best that we all just kind of come with our own pre-prepared questions, maybe meet beforehand and see like which ones overlap so we can decide who gets to ask what when it comes to those. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, we're off to a good start here between Chris and Joe of creating an environment over here where people actually want to come and like do these interviews with us and chat about their movies. And I want to keep that vibe that we're just hanging out with them, chatting about their movies, as opposed to it being like some paint by the numbers formal interview kind of a thing every time. You know, there's a million places you can go for that kind of stuff. I don't know, man. I'm real pleased with how that went.
Yeah, it was fun.
So I guess we can close this out and do some off-air chatting for a moment. I don't really have much else to say to you people out there. Thank you for tuning in. You know, hopefully you enjoyed this as thoroughly as we did. The smile on our faces should have been apparent enough that we were into what we were doing here. And Chris certainly delivered, so he will be a repeat guest for sure. He's earned his forever card as far as I'm concerned, where Schlockaholics, you know, has anything to do with it. So definitely going to be seeing more of Chris in the future. I don't know if the Camp Seavage thing is going to be exclusive to that, or if we're going to just start doing the Dissecting a Crapster piece over here. And, you know, also archiving them on the Camp Seavage channel. It really is a fan channel, so that makes sense. I would love for other people to be able to archive their reviews and things over there eventually if they become trusted fans. So, I mean, something to look into. But Schlockaholics is really the main focus, and I think that this is a good platform to get it out to people that maybe wouldn't fuck with Chris's stuff otherwise. And obviously the main goal is going to be changing old good buddy Jake's opinion on it. Filthy McNasty was the wrong place to start.
Well, that was a strong one to start with.
Yeah, Jake, I think, is really going to fall in love with some of Chris's stuff. It's just a matter of showing him the right movies.
Right.
He's very much not like even a Joe Sherlock. I think you watch a couple of his movies, you kind of got it. You know, like he obviously builds upon it. But Chris, his subject matter is so varied. Like one minute he could be doing a Conan spoof, the next minute he could be doing like a spoof of The Office where they're investigating ghosts. The next moment he could be doing a killer, Pumpkin Man movie. I mean, there's no way to fucking determine what amount of his stuff you're gonna like unless you just watch it.
Right.
He hates a lot more of his stuff than he loves, and I think that's any artist is going to be like that. Thankfully, the only thing we really agree on when it comes to that is the redneck stuff, and even some of that stuff's pretty fun. I'm a defender of certain elements of that, but I think that's the only area of his career so far where me and Chris entirely agree that it's pretty ass. But they were making him do that. They were hiring him to do those movies, and he needed to pay the bills, kind of a thing. So, of course, he's going to do it. He's got some funny lines in them, but mostly they're garbage.
Is that the Spits on Your Grave trilogy or triple feature?
Yeah, it's the inbred, or it's Close Encounters, the inbred redneck kind. Then it's inbred redneck zombies, or Evil Dead Inbred Rednecks, and then I Spit Chew on Your Grave is the good one. That one's not necessarily straight up redneck stuff. It's more Leo DeChamp starring in a spoof of Last House on the Left, which is it's hilarious, dude. But Close Encounters, the Inbred Redneck kind, and Evil Dead Inbred Rednecks are garbage. Even by Seaver standards, they're pretty bad, dude. But even those have some fun lines in them and some fun appearances by characters that we know and love. So stuff to look forward to for sure. Obviously, our next discussion is going to be for Manos, the Hands of Fucking Fate. It's going to be a little while because Brandon is on vacation, so we've got to kind of figure out a thing that we're going to do in between. I don't know, man. Do you have any thoughts on what we should do with that? Should we open that to like a viewer vote or a viewer submission thing? I would feel kind of bad doing that without Brandon, but it would be kind of fun maybe if we both put up a movie and then just had people vote on which one we covered. Or I don't know if I mentioned it in chat, we could do a Family Feud thing where like you have your kids pick a movie and I have my daughter and Nami pick a movie, and then we just do a randomizer between the two to see which, or my niece and Nami pick a movie, and we do a randomizer between the two to see which one gets selected.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that, or if you're not wanting to do any of those without Brandon, I mean, we could just stick to Schlock Talk.
That too. I'm not opposed to doing like episodes like that without.
Or we could even do a weekend version of it or something.
What do you mean?
Like just, how we usually do it Monday night. I mean, we could just do I don't know, maybe we could do a request on the weekend for what Schlock Talk should be, maybe.
That could be fun.
Just pick
We've got a good week or so to figure it out. So
throw in a couple categories or something.
That actually does sound real cool. Like viewers submit the discussion topics and we just go off on whatever they put in there.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So if you guys have discussion topics you want to submit for us to cover on our special weekend edition of Schlock Talk, while Brandon is on his Halloween cruise, go ahead and submit them in the comments below. Other than that, of course, be sure to check out Brandon on Septum Sin versus the World. Check out Chris over on It Crept from the 80s, and be sure to hit up any of his sales that he does through his Warlock Home Video Facebook page. Definitely check out Cody on his unboxing channels, on the internet. Your son has a good channel called God damn it,
the Killable Productions.
Killable Productions. Yeah, he's doing some unboxings over there. I think some impression videos, some reviews. I haven't watched a ton of it yet, but it's always good to encourage that younger generation, man, in a non-creepy way where you don't send them a million Halloween movies. I sent you guys one. I think you're really gonna like it. It's the ultimate, like, obviously I'm making a joke about that, but it is pretty cool on its own. It's a blockbuster copy of Halloween. Pretty
perfect. Perfect.
In the original case and everything. So it's a cool display piece.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to digging into whatever you sent us for sure.
Dude, that package is gonna rock your world, brother. It's there's some good stuff in there. Not least of which is the video violence double feature I promised to send you. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Okay. See, Nami still remembers the horrors of the bootleg package.
I swear to God, somebody was stalking us.
Yeah, it was a scary moment for sure at first. I warned Cody about this one, so it's not just a random, unsolicited, decipherable box of like garbage. I sent you some good stuff in there, man. I think you're gonna be stoked on it.
Yeah,
I think
there's some
stuff in there you thought was never gonna come, and it's in there.
Oh, you sent him the box of movies?
Yeah, baby, he's got 4 pounds of schlock on his way.
Let's just say.
And it also ties into a discussion we had in the last Schlock Talk where I was talking about like being worried about hoarding tendencies and getting rid of stuff I don't need anymore. So I definitely took the opportunity to send you some dope stuff that I've upgraded, since or before that talk, or, basically I've been just sitting on the old versions of it that I had upgraded. So I don't need them anymore. There's no reason to keep it in the set. And about half of the stuff was bought at Hastings back in the day.
Oh, there you go.
It's very appropriately themed.
It all
if you
connects.
want to set this out on the porch, that would be magnificent. So the jack-o'-lantern is being placed. We're going to get off the air here so we can just shoot the shit like men. And we need something.
Can you go to the last Blockbusters?
Oh, we're going to. For sure. I think when we go to last Blockbuster, we're going to document the trip for Schlockaholics too. So
Okay.
Either be prepared to be on the channel or be prepared to be the cameraman for the entire weekend. Those are your choices. So thank you once again, kind viewers, for indulging us for the last 2.5 hours. I like to think it was real, beneficial for all of us. Hopefully it made for some good content. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the festivities. If I had to rate the Voodoo Ranger Atomic Pumpkin, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5. It's fine. It's a good festive beer. It's not as spicy as it advertised. So that part of it's kind of a bummer. But
there's still guts in here.
Okay, I was going to pull some of those out of his mouth once he was on the porch. There's a reason that the guts are still in there.
Okay, I'll put the guts.
Please do. And don't critique my work again, or you'll be fired. I don't know where I was going with that, but we had a good time. We'll see you motherfuckers next time. Cheers. Thanks for watching. Hit all the, relevant links in the comments below. We'll see you back here next time.